Good day and welcome. You are watching Corporate Access with myself, Fifi Peters. Visa recently hosted its Innovation for Inclusion Summit. The theme of the summit was harnessing Africa's spirit of innovation for growth. Visa focused on how payments companies and mobile payments platforms are partnering to accelerate the development of innovative payment solutions. The summit also elaborated on how these partnerships enhance financial inclusion and grow the payment ecosystem positively. Here to unpack what these innovations mean for the end user is Akshay Chopra, the Head of Innovation and Product Design for Central Europe, Middle East and Africa for Visa. Akshay, thanks so much for your time. How is Visa driving innovation in sub-Saharan Africa?
Thank you, Fifi. As an innovator, when you approach sub-Saharan Africa, it's almost like a pilgrim because there is such a rich legacy of innovation already there. And there is so much more that we can do in terms of potential. I mean, if you look at the innovations with M-Pesa and mobile money in Kenya, how South Africa is becoming the Silicon Valley of this part of the world, and how Nigeria is becoming one of the fintech capitals, there's so much that's already happened and that we can take to the next level. But at the same time, we're seeing there's a tremendous opportunity to increase financial inclusion in bringing more and more individuals into the formal financial system and small merchants into the formal financial systems through acceptance. So some of our biggest initiatives are built around innovation for inclusion. Not only do we want to drive digital payments and digital commerce in general, but we want to do it in a way that brings more people into the financial system, gives small business owners the tools to run their businesses digitally and more effectively, and also improves the lives of individuals across the region. And we've been investing in a lot of such co-creations, a lot of initiatives, pilots, and partnerships in this region. And soon, we're also going to be opening up Visa's first innovation studio in sub-Saharan Africa to be based in Nairobi.
You speak to any financial services sector or financial services player in the sector, and everyone is talking about increasing financial inclusion presently. I suppose then the question would be, how is Visa going about doing it? What is the approach that you are taking that perhaps is a lot different from your competitors?
Certainly. So I'd like to look at it in two ways. Firstly, how do you get a new segment of individuals and citizens involved in financial inclusion? And the second is, how do you get more merchants into the formal economy? For the individuals, for the consumers, what we've realized is we must work with partners like the mobile networks and the fintech wallets who have tremendous reach amongst those segments that were historically underserved by the financial ecosystem. And we've done a lot of partnerships in this part of the world, and we want to not just provide them payment services, but enable them to improve their lives through better means to payments, finance, and digital in general. And then on the other hand, we have the merchants. How do we improve the competitiveness of merchants? How do we get them to start transacting digitally? Because they're the most critical link in the African economy. You get merchants to start working digitally, accepting digital payments, then they can start paying their employees, their suppliers, their value chain in digital as well. So we've been working with a large number of organizations, our banks and our fintechs like Paga in Nigeria, for example, with whom we're co-creating solutions that makes digital payments and digital business tools more affordable and more impactful for those small merchants.
You mentioned M-Pesa at the top of your response, and also the number of partnerships that you've got across the continent in the space of mobile money. And I'm just wondering how these partnerships or the work that you have been doing so far has changed the behavior of consumers and merchants in sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah, it's still early days, but essentially we're unlocking a lot of these transaction flows and a lot of user journeys that were initially completely analog and bringing them now into the digital world. And even if you look at the impact of COVID-19, we've seen such tremendous digitization. We've seen that there is now up to $490 billion in digital payment volumes just through mobile money these days, which is enormous. So we want to enable people to be able to use their mobile money, not just within that one market, but be able to use it at merchants around the world. We also want to make it so that when someone comes into Africa from a foreign country, a tourist, a business traveler, they are able to see that their cards, their Visa credentials are being accepted in this part of the world as well. But ultimately, it comes down to being able to work with these mobile networks to really bring the global financial system into the underserved members of society, whom these mobile networks have been doing a tremendous job at being able to serve.
Yeah, that is quite a tremendous increase, as you do cite, that you've experienced, and especially in a continent where cash does remain the most dominant form of payment. What then, as we look to the future, in your view, is the next frontier for payments in sub-Saharan Africa?
Yeah. And look, there is still a lot of work to be done on that front. Even despite the changes and the new consumer behaviors with COVID-19, we're still seeing that only 6 of the markets in sub-Saharan Africa have a digital payments penetration that's more than 5%. So you can see there's a tremendous opportunity. I actually think that we need to, as I mentioned before, solve it both from the consumer perspective, but equally from the merchant's perspective, being able to help those merchants deliver better value. And at the same time, there's a lot of new trends emerging. Cryptocurrencies is a massive trend that's happening around the world right now, which, in my opinion, Africa is going to play a watershed role in deciding the fate of this cryptocurrency movement globally. But ultimately, the opportunity, even with the current technologies and even with the current user base, is so tremendous. There's so many people who are yet to be banked, and there's so much cash that's still in the system that needs to be replaced with something more transparent and inclusive.
Akshay, just to dial back to your last comment, which was quite watershed in my view, and that is the role that Africa will play in the space of digital currencies and cryptos, and in the role of shaping how those eventually land and roll out. Can you just elaborate that for us a bit more, and perhaps also give us insight into what role Visa then may also play?
Absolutely. So, look, Africa is a very diverse region, right? And no surprise that even the way the different central banks and the governments are approaching the crypto world is very diverse. It's a spectrum. So, on one hand of the spectrum, you have those central banks saying that we don't want anything to do with this movement, and they've either banned it or they just voiced their opposition to it. Then you have the middle of the curve, which is where many of the nations are, where they're saying, look, we're still not sure about cryptocurrency, but we think this technology, blockchain, central bank digital currencies, those things have a lot of potential. So we're actively starting to explore those. And then on the other hand of the spectrum, you have those markets that are saying, not only do we want to enable these cryptocurrencies and innovate with them, we want to become global centers of innovation and hotbeds for cryptocurrency innovation. So the way we approach this is very much in a very nuanced way, depending on the way the regulators are thinking about it and how the central bank looks at it as well. And we as Visa, we're doing a number of things to be able to serve our regulators, serve the central banks, and also serve the banks and the merchants in that space. Everything from, you may have seen in the news that we've allowed cryptocurrency settlement for the first time among any payment networks. We're working on a suite of crypto APIs that once they're live, they will actually enable banks and fintechs to be able to offer cryptocurrency trading from within their mobile app. And of course, with the central banks, Visa has had the opportunity to help build a financial system that's secure, inclusive, transparent since 1958. And we want to be able to bring that standards-driven approach to cryptocurrencies as well.
Very interesting there. I suppose still time will tell how that story eventually does unfold. But just as you spoke to the key trends that you have witnessed, particularly in the past 12 months with COVID-19 and the acceleration to the digitization process that the pandemic has brought forth, how much of these trends that you have witnessed play out are trends that will likely stay with us, or perhaps, when we go back or go forward into the new norm, these are trends that might go away, in your view?
Excellent question. And this is something that we've been trying to get a really clear understanding of as well. When we speak to customers, everyday people who started buying online for the first time, or now instead of paying with cash, they're tapping their phones or tapping their cards, we're seeing that the vast majority of people, even when things peter down when it comes to the pandemic, the vast majority of people are still going to retain a lot of these new behaviors that they've picked up. So it's something that is here to stay. It's not going to go back to before. Frankly, nothing is. So that's one thing on the users front. As far as merchants, what I've seen in my experience, that the way to keep them from relapsing back into cash after things settle down somewhat, is that we need to add value to their businesses beyond just the point of sale. Because a merchant doesn't get up in the morning thinking, I want to accept payments. No, they wake up thinking, I got to run my business, I got to feed my kids. And so we need to be able to add value to help them run their business better. So run their business in a more digital way, run inventory, digitize the cash register, offer credit at the point of sale, and those kind of things. And if we do that well, then merchants will want to stay digital for a long time, even after this thing settles down.
Yeah. And again, we touched briefly on the opportunities for growth in this space, especially as we still have quite a big population on the continent that is unbanked and that is financially excluded, as it were. What then are the challenges, in your view, to narrowing some of these gaps?
Yeah, that's the really critical question. I think historically, we have not even had access to those segments because they were outside of the reach of the formal financial system. They got ignored by a lot of the financial players. But that's where the mobile networks in Africa, as well as a lot of the wallets and fintechs, and some of the more innovative banks, they've done a tremendous job in building relationships with those marginalized, underserved segments of society. And the way we want to approach it is ally with those fintechs, mobile networks, banks, and say that, look, you've built that customer connection. Now, how do we really supercharge it? How do we take that customer relationship, say, with a mobile network and make it an engine of commerce and allow them to make payments and run their life more efficiently and more digitally now that we have that relationship with them as well?
All right. Akshay, thanks so much for your time. That is where we will have to leave it. And that is, of course, all we have time for in today's Corporate Access. Once again, a big thank you to my guest, Akshay Chopra, the Head of Innovation and Product Design for Central Europe, Middle East and Africa for Visa. Until next time we meet, it's goodbye.